We hope you enjoy this audio-only podcast. You can watch the full video versions on our YouTube channel at All Things Unexplained. There we share visuals, documents, and extended discussions you won't hear anywhere else. While you're there, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new video. But for now, enjoy this audio version of All Things Unexplained.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All right, Unexplained Ones, this is Dr. Mounts. Welcome back to All Things Unexplained. This video, it's been in the works for quite a while, and it connects modern UAP to national security, and this is a very serious issue that is unfolding as we speak. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button, we do weekly content on UFOs, Bigfoot, aliens, astrophysics, and everything in between. And yes, it's absolutely free. So if you're into those kinds of things and you want to support the channel, hit that sub button, leave a comment down below, and that will automatically enter you into our giveaways. And we have a lot of exciting things to give away. Just be a sub to All Things Unexplained. Leave a comment if you want. Stick around to the end of the video and we'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. All right, I'm going to make an effort to break this down chronologically. And really this all begins November 14th, 2004, and that was the Nimitz Tic Tac encounter. The Nimitz Tic Tac encounter occurred off the coast of California, off of San Diego. Some of the key players involved here were David Fravor, and this happened with the Nimitz Strike Group. This was really the first modern military UAP case to become globally known. The object demonstrated unusual flight characteristics and was tracked by multiple sensors. And we've had folks on All Things Unexplained, like Kevin Knuth, who studied the physics of the Tic Tac and found that this was indeed truly anomalous. For one thing, the energy that it would take for these objects, and there were multiple encounters, this was not just one Tic Tac, would have been more than the entire energy output of the United States. So the Tic Tac was really what kickstarted our modern UAP encounters and its connection to national security. I think that even though some people have attempted debunks of the Tic Tac encounter, I think it is a genuine encounter with an anomalous object, and that it was not U.S. tech. I have never believed that, and that it really shook the military. And things started happening. Now that was in 2004. We're going to skip ahead to January of 2013. We can only imagine what might have started going into effect with the government, the military, and other entities between this 2004 Nimitz encounter and the clip I'm about to show you, which I discovered. It's from January 2013, and it is General Neil McCasland, who went missing in February 2026. We've been talking a lot about his case on the channel. And back in 2013, he gave a very interesting presentation on behalf of the AFRL, the Air Force Research Laboratory. And one portion of that presentation in particular really stood out to me, and I'm going to play it for you now.
Let's keep moving here. Our next portfolio in the space and the nuclear business, these are largely spread around three main themes here. Access, we've got some major investments in reducing the cost of access to space, in payload technologies, things that create better choices for both the NRO and the Air Force's Space and Missile Center in terms of engineering payloads, and then space situational awareness, the information management, information exploitation, command and control of sensing, and information extraction for the surveillance of what is something like 10 to the 22nd cubic miles of space containing 20,000 objects that potentially matter to us.
When I first heard that, I just did a double take. I was like, wow. So here we are 9 years after the Nimitz incident, and we have General Neil McCasland still missing back in 2013, and he's talking about the Air Force's ability to conduct surveillance. Thanks to technology development by the AFRL, they're conducting surveillance of a gigantic swath of space, an area of space equivalent to 10 to the 22nd power cubic miles. Okay, so I had AI help me make a diagram of what exactly this would look like. I pulled it up on the screen for you. I'm going to look at my phone because I have a hard time reading it where it's at on my screen. But an area of that size, if we made it into a cube, then each side of the cube with Earth in the middle would be 21.5 million miles long. Think about that. That is the size of the area of space that the Air Force was conducting surveillance of all the way back in 2013. And not only was it surveillance, but he literally says that at that time, they had about 20,000 objects that was of interest to the Air Force. Clearly, this is not U.S. tech they're tracking in this vast arena of space. You could make the argument it's adversary technology, maybe some comets, meteors, other space junk. But I couldn't help but wonder, are there known UAP to the Air Force, individual UAP that the Air Force is tracking, sort of like how we tag great white sharks and track them? I know I live on the East Coast here in the All Things Unexplained studios in North Carolina, and it's in the news sometimes when a big great white pings off the Outer Banks. In 2013, were there individual UAPs that were known to the Air Force, and we were somehow tracking them in this vast swath of space? To put things in perspective, low Earth orbit satellites are only 100 to 2,000 miles above Earth. GPS satellites, 12,550 miles above Earth. Geostationary, which is 22,000 miles above Earth. And it's my understanding this is located at the equator so it can match the spin of the Earth. The moon is only 239,000 miles. I say only. When we're talking about a cube that's 21.5 million miles on each side, then yeah, the moon, relatively speaking, isn't that far away. But think about this. The Air Force was surveilling far, far beyond even the dark side of the moon. It's 93 million miles to the sun, and each side of the cube that General McCasland was talking about, if we made it into a cube, would be 21.5 million miles. That's about a fourth of the way to the sun. So this surveillance region extended far beyond Earth, far beyond the moon, far beyond the region where most satellites operate, reaching millions of miles in every direction. And if we were talking about 20,000 objects, then each object of interest, on average, would have approximately 500 quadrillion cubic miles of space to itself. If this cube were filled with water, it would cover the entire Earth to a depth of over 1.5 million miles. We're literally talking about needles in a cosmic haystack here. And for whatever reason, 9 years after the Tic Tac, the Air Force was keeping tabs on 20,000 objects in this huge expanse of space. Now, in the next 2 years after McCasland's remarks about technology being developed by the AFRL, 2014, 2015, we had the Gimbal and GoFast encounters. These occurred off the East Coast of the United States in training areas, and they involved Navy pilots and other squadrons. And they had repeated UAP encounters that were reported. These videos also later got released by DoD, and they were confirmed as authentic military footage. Let's take a look and listen to the GoFast video.
Oh, got it! Woohoo! Did you talk to moving target?
No, I took an auto track.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, look at the fly!
And now let's switch over to the Gimbal video.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
My gosh.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not.
That is the LNS, dude.
Well, if there's like...
Look at that thing.
It's rotating.
I think one thing you can't help but notice in those videos is the sincere shock in the pilots' voices. And there they say, there's a whole fleet of them. A whole fleet of them. I never believed that our pilots couldn't differentiate between a balloon, for example, at those altitudes and what they were tracking with multiple sensors. All right, let's move along a little to January 25th, 2016. This is from a WikiLeaks document, email between Tom DeLonge and John Podesta. The subject is General McCasland. We've talked about this email before on the channel, but it's worth mentioning here again in this context because I feel like it's very relevant. DeLonge says he's mentioned he's a skeptic. He's not. I've been working with him for 4 months. I just got done giving him a 4-hour presentation on the entire project a few weeks ago. Trust me, the advice has already been happening on how to do all this. He just has to say that out loud, but he is very, very aware as he was in charge of all the stuff. When Roswell crashed, they shipped it to the laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. General McCasland was in charge of that exact laboratory up to a couple of years ago. He not only knows what I'm trying to achieve, he helped assemble my advisory team. He's a very important man. Best, Tom DeLonge. Now here DeLonge references a meeting with McCasland, and on Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp, Tom DeLonge described that meeting. Shout out to UFO Sarah on X for going over these Tom DeLonge audios in her X spaces. So this meeting between DeLonge and McCasland, which we know occurred at the Albuquerque airport in a restaurant that has since closed there in the airport. For me, that meeting has taken on a whole new meaning. Again, let's think national security here. National security. Here's Tom DeLonge describing his meeting with General Neil McCasland to George Knapp. This would have happened sometime in late 2015 or perhaps earlier in January 2016.
My first meeting with the main advisor was very clear that they were trying to do something that was best for the Republic. That came out like 8 times over a period of 2 hours. We went through the conversation of, I don't think you can keep a secret, to where it was the Cold War and we found the life form, bounce forward to like what we need to do for the Republic is X. And this is the best for the Republic. The United States needs this. And it was very thoughtful considerations. It made me really patriotic. You know, it was not what I was expecting. These guys are trying to deal with something that is what they term an existential threat.
So Tom DeLonge says, hey, I met General McCasland. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting some sort of ghoulish UFO cabal type guy like you would see in the movies. But that's not how he was at all. Instead, this dude was a patriot. He was concerned for his country. He was concerned for the citizens. His primary worry was national security. He also mentions a life form that was discovered in the Cold War. I don't really know much more about that, but he concludes with our military and our government, at least the ones in the know, believe that we are facing some sort of existential threat. So again, here we're not dealing with balloons, mass hysteria, secret testing of our own technology, be it by the U.S. military or some private corporation, by some aerospace company in California. No, that is absolutely not what we're dealing with here. And in 2017, we had the article that really broke this out big time to the general public. This came out in the New York Times. It is Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program. And there you see, this kind of is for the first time to the general public that they became aware of some of the videos that we previously watched here. such as GoFast, Gimbal, Tic Tac. These all came together here in this article in the New York Times in 2017. All right, we're going to go to the UFO files for this next one. So we're going to go ahead to February 15th, 2022. This UAP document says, according to the accounts of 5 U.S. Army service members, an airborne object was observed approximately 6 miles to the west over and slightly behind the Cheyenne Mountain silhouette for approximately 30 to 180 seconds. The witnesses described the object as roughly the size of a large jet and resembling an angular, non-symmetrical potato made of uneven panels, which was completely stationary about 300 to 500 feet above Cheyenne Mountain while slowly changing shape. It had a slightly translucent, shimmering white appearance with defined edges and a milky shimmer that reflected sunlight. The witnesses noted that the sky was clear, and despite keeping their eyes on the object, it suddenly disappeared. There was even an artistic rendering of the potato UAP over Cheyenne Mountain done. I even made a little jab at this on X and made my own loaded baked potato UAP. If you're not following me on X, be sure to head over there when you get a chance. We are at AT Unexplained on X. Still trying to get my subscriber count back up on X because we were hacked by some weird crypto people while we were digging into the Epstein files, but we're back on X better than ever. Check us out. And I just want to say right here, I'm going to highlight just a few of the cases from the UFO files, but there is so much more to read on some of these modern cases. I encourage you to check them out. So it seems like we really start having these airspace incursions at our sensitive military nuclear sites really start ramping up around 2022. But of course, I think that we should classify the Tic Tac and the Gimbal and the GoFast as incursions themselves, even though they were quite earlier. Tic Tac in 2004, GoFast and Gimbal in 2014, 2015. But now, fast forward, and it's 2022, and these things really seem to be kicking into gear. Our sensitive sites really start being harassed by things in the sky. And I don't think it's any coincidence that it's at this time, July 2022, that AARO was formed, the All-Domain Anomalous Resolution Office. And while I think they were in over their heads right from the start, I really think it's a sign as to the seriousness of these incursions. One, that AARO was formulated, and two, it seems like AARO has not been able to resolve the true nature of these incidents. And in October 2023, we have a series of very interesting incidents that took place somewhere at Western U.S. sites. And here you can see a DOW graphic about some of those incidents. This image is a notional representation of 4 incidents reportedly involving UAP in the Western United States as seen from above. This illustration depicts multiple incidents reported by U.S. federal law enforcement special agents over a period of several days in October 2023. Incident number 1, we had orbs launching orbs. Agents reported observing multiple instances of an orange mother orb launching smaller red orbs. Incident number 2, a fairy orb. Agents reported observing a large, fiery or fairy orb projected against a ridgeline at an approximate distance of 1,000 yards, so roughly 10 football fields away. Incident number 3, a dark kite. Agents reported observing a thin or dark kite-shaped object featuring 1 red light and 1 white light at a close estimated range. And finally, incident 4, the translucent kite. Agents reported observing a translucent kite-shaped object at a close estimated range. You know, we're talking about the same shape here. I wonder if we're dealing with the same object and it's just changing appearance somehow, some sort of stealth mode, something like that. And I still think this is part of the reason why in a lot of these official UAP reports, they have kept things like shape classified. they have redacted in the past shapes of these objects. And I think that's very important. I think that the shapes can really help us figure some things out, like perhaps not only the form of the objects and the number of times that they're encountered, but perhaps the function of the objects in much the same way that our aircrafts take different forms for different functions. It has, of course, been hypothesized that perhaps UAP, maybe they do the same thing. Maybe orbs are for surveillance, maybe triangle UFO or for something different. They also did some artistic renderings of some of these sightings from October 2023. And here's one where they're looking at some orbs over a ridgeline in the distance. And this was in the last UFO Files release 3. And they actually said something quite jaw-dropping in this release. And it was on analysis of these objects and what they could be. And very, very interesting. They said they essentially eliminated the possibility that the orbs, like you're seeing in this image, were drones. Why? Because in some of the incidents, the observers observed the objects loitering for hours. And the report said this exceeds the capabilities of our military and commercial drones. That's huge. That's the first time, to my knowledge, that the capabilities of military drones has been addressed at all. I've not really heard the capability of commercial drones addressed to a large degree, but you would have to assume the capability of military drones exceeds that of commercial drones. And the fact that they're acknowledging the loitering time of these objects exceeds the capabilities of our military drones, that's quite shocking in my opinion. And by the way, there's some infamous videos out there. They go by the MH370 videos. In particular, they showed drone footage and maybe satellite footage of some sort of airplane having an interaction with multiple orbs. I'm going to try to link that video up. All Things Unexplained did a video on that. And we used military experts, friends of the show, and we found an aviation expert willing to analyze the videos. And we took out the most contentious part of the videos, which happened to be a burst at the end of the videos in which the airplane disappeared. I also didn't give the aviation expert or our military friend any background on the videos, not until after they did their analysis. I'm going to try to link that up here. Maybe it'll be on the screen, but definitely in the show description. Be sure to check that out because it's not our suggestion that this is MH370 that we're seeing. That's just what the videos have become known as because they've become associated for some reason with MH370. But I want you to check it out because the conclusions that we came to very much apply to this video and what we're talking about here. Modern UAP encounters and their connection to national security. August 2nd to 9th, 2024, there were Plant 42 incursions. This is Palmdale, California. A shout out to the War Zone. Check them out. Here's their story from August 19th, 2024. Headline, Palmdale UFO Scare leads to revelations about mystery drone incursions over secretive Plant 42. So here in August 2024, they had multiple days of airspace incursions. This affected Plant 42. This affected Palmdale Regional Airport and actually closed down the airspace at the airport. And citizens in Palmdale, the public, they were filming things in the sky. Some of these were reported as UFO videos, but in my mind, this was definitely connected to what was happening at Plant 42 and affecting the airport as well. And there's something really important that comes into play here. And it's two things that would trigger FBI involvement. Plant 42 is a military facility, but an airspace incursion that could potentially signal espionage would trigger FBI involvement. Not only that, but an airspace incursion of an airport, so involving the FAA, this is an automatic trigger for FBI involvement. I think that's really important to understand as we're looking at these new UFO file releases, because there's several files from the FBI, and I think we need to understand exactly why the FBI would be involved in these cases. It's not like they just went out to investigate a UFO on their own. No, it's because of two things, really. Incursions, it's just become an obvious potential threat of espionage. But then two, some of them, either on purpose or inadvertently, affect an airport. And when that happens, we've got the FBI involved. So I want us to make a mental note here about that fact. But now let's skip ahead to late 2024 to an event that made worldwide news, and that is the New Jersey drone incursions. Some people called it a drone flout, but the thing is, this was actually happening in other parts of the world, including the UK. So it wasn't just affecting the United States. Some people tried to say, these are just airplanes. Some people tried to say, these are just balloons, misidentifications, mass hysteria, you name it, and somebody tried to blame it on it. But the fact of the matter is, at All Things Unexplained, I took a deep dive into, for example, what it takes to shut down an airport in Europe. Because in Europe, Denmark, for example, we had airports being shut down for incursions. And here's what does not happen. Some worker on the tarmac, he sees an airplane, thinks it's UFO, they shut down the airport. That could not be further from the truth. I actually found the process of what it takes to shut down an airport in Europe, and some of it is classified. But the part we know for sure is that there are trained people and technology in place to detect things that are not supposed to be in their airspace. And if something is detected, it gets passed down to something else for verification. And they have multiple steps here that it takes on the way to closing down the airport. And if the airport gets shut down, it's a pretty safe bet that it was because something legitimately was in their airspace. And Denmark, for one, was taking these incursions very seriously. And then in December 2024, we actually had something quite frightening happen live on Fox News. Lawmaker Jeff Van Drew. What happened, it kind of reminded me of War of the Worlds in a way, except this was never fiction. This was always real, and it easily could have caused a panic. Here's what Jeff Van Drew told Fox News.
Objects in the sky that are the size of an SUV over any city, over any state, it's an invasion of our airspace. In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. You know, I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyist or hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are digesting this. Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home, also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen. That capability exists. It's possible some of those drones are here. So I have two questions. How are they fueling them? They have to land somewhere. Drones don't fly forever. Why don't they close down the airspace? Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's the holidays. Shut it down. But if you start shooting things and you don't know how they're fueled, that's going to be mass explosions. This isn't like one spy balloon. Congressman, this is serious.
We've got to bring them down, and we've got to find a way to bring them down. I don't know exactly where they're landing. Obviously, I have some information. And again, this isn't just Jeff Van Drew. Oh, let's get on Harris Faulkner's show and say something outrageous. I'm telling you the straight deal from very high positioned individuals who are telling me this. And the bottom line is they're launching them. They are across the country. We don't even have anything like this.
No.
Our government and also certainly our hobbyists don't. So think about it. It's not only do I have the information, but it's also common sense. We've got to get them down. We've got to determine how they function, what they do, make sure that we can get them, and you're right, in a safe way. When I say shoot them down, get them down any way that you can, but right now they're probably extracting information. This is a clear and present danger to the United States and to our president-elect, and it's a serious business.
Well, and if one of them happens to fall and they're fueled, that explosion could kill people. I have to let you go, Congressman, but I'm so grateful for your time.
Wow. So Jeff Van Drew goes live on Fox News December 2024. It says the drone incursions, they're Iran. They're launching drones into our airspace. And let's keep this in mind because there's been some breaking news here in the last couple of days that's going to make us circle back to what Jeff Van Drew said about Iran. He brought up some other good points, though. And some of those have since been corroborated by UFO files, like, we don't have this technology. Well, the UFO files comes out and says that. Remember, we said the orbs that we're spotting in the Western U.S. incidents, they exceed the loitering capability of our technology. Even though he blamed these on coming from a mothership, he said, we don't know where they're landing. We don't know where they're going back to. We need to keep that in mind as well. I think that's an important clue. And around the same time, we had Homeland Security briefings. And these Homeland Security briefings talked about drone operators with no battlefield experience. Their feet had never set foot on the ground in a battlefield, but they had 1,500 confirmed kills. So we had individual drone operators with 1,500 confirmed kills with drones. And it was an understanding at the time that these were actually 1,500 different drones pre-programmed with different targets. We heard the anchor on Fox News mention the president's home, the drone operator, 1,500 different drones pre-programmed, different targets, all launching from the same base and carrying out their missions. Drones perhaps with the ability to loiter at a target until it was time to execute their mission. And we have had reports of drones loitering at officials' homes. Now just think what 1,500 drones are capable of. What about 1 million drones? What if our skies were suddenly flooded with 1 million of these, each pre-programmed with a different target? We've talked quite a bit about continuity of government on this channel. We may be looking at the greatest threat to continuity of government since mutually assured destruction, simultaneous atomic destruction. Now, interestingly, since this Jeff Van Drew appearance, he's basically dropped off the radar. I haven't heard anything else from Jeff Van Drew. We haven't heard anything else about this story that he went on the news and told. We don't know who told him. I mean, somebody had to tell him. And he had to believe them enough to go on national television and tell the whole world. Think about that. Who was it? We don't know. What's Jeff Van Drew been up to lately? We don't know. How close to the truth was he really? Again, we just don't know. But there are clues. There are clues out there. Let's go back to the UFO files for late 2025. And this is a very important file. In late 2025, during early evening daylight hours, a senior U.S. intelligence officer, along with a colleague and 2 pilots, departed our Joint Operations Center in a helicopter. Our mission was to investigate loud thuds heard in the mountains on the test range, which coincided with UAP sightings reported over the previous several nights. We aimed to search remote mountain areas for possible debris or objects that might explain the orb-like sightings. As we continued searching near areas of reported orb activity, we discovered a large cave entrance with no visible end in sight. The terrain around the entrance offered no safe landing spot, so I instructed the pilot to orbit it several times for observation. We noted the location and then pressed on. That report goes on to describe in great detail, and at some point, the FBI conducted an interview with some of these officials. It describes in great detail their encounters with various orbs near or over this sensitive military site. And based on the geographical descriptions, and we've talked about this encounter on the show before, based on the geographical descriptions, it is my belief that this is quite likely describing the Nevada test site, a huge, secretive complex, isolated, away from the public in Nevada. It matches all the geographical descriptions in the account, and the isolation of the facility explains why these encounters never made it into the media, why they never got noticed by the public. So the fact that we have the FBI interviewing some of these officials who are out there investigating previous orb encounters, again, what would that tell us about the FBI's involvement? It would tell us that they have been triggered by espionage and or the FAA. And I think in this case, the answer is definitely potential espionage. We don't know for sure if this involved FAA, airport, airspace or not. But at this point, knowing what we know now, it's a pretty safe bet to say the military and the government were taking these incursions as potential espionage. So even though Jeff Van Drew kind of got written off for what he said in December 2024, these airspace incursions expanded. Or maybe they were happening at the same time. We just didn't know it. But they moved on from New Jersey. And they moved on to sites that really caught our attention. I think one is the Nevada test site. One we know was Plant 42, Palmdale. And then we had another, March 9th, Barksdale Air Force Base. This is one of those that I think should have been worldwide news. I think that a lot of distractions were mixed into the media and the news that kind of distracted us from this story. But Barksdale Air Force Base is a major U.S. Air Force installation located in Bossier City, Louisiana. It spans over 22,000 acres and is best known as the headquarters for the Air Force Global Strike Command and home to the world-famous B-52H Stratofortress bomber fleet. The base provides the U.S. with lethal nuclear and conventional combat-ready capabilities. I think the incursions over this facility really turned some heads. And I think it really helped make happen some other recent events that we're about to talk about. This is a write-up from the Air Force on that incursion. It says, to clear up inaccurate and incomplete reporting beginning Monday, March 9th, Barksdale Air Force Base experienced several unauthorized drone incursions that varied in duration and number of drones. Out of an abundance of caution in response to the initial event, Barksdale Base leadership issued a shelter-in-place order for the morning of March 9th that was lifted that same morning. Operations from Barksdale continue unabated, and the incident remains under an active federal investigation. It says to effectively counter this evolving threat, the Department of War has mobilized a coordinated multi-organizational effort. Along with these efforts to enhance existing counter UAS architecture already in place, they have temporarily deployed additional capabilities. However, the details and locations are being withheld due to operational security. This was a serious event, home to our nuclear strike force. We had something in the skies that we couldn't stop, and we did not know what it was. We didn't know where it was coming from, and we did not know where it was going back to. I think Barksdale was part of something that's changed. Perhaps the intensity of these events, perhaps the frequency of these events, perhaps the apparent motivation of the objects involved in these events has changed. Perhaps the importance of the sites that have been targeted, or let me at least say that have had encounters with these objects. I think the importance of these sites, all of this combined, it has really made a lot of people very, very nervous. Going back to the orb encounters in the Western U.S. site, when the officials are circling around a cave entrance, I think that's a big clue. I think that they were looking for somewhere like that. Perhaps a subterranean area that could house these orbs, these objects. A subterranean area where these objects, these orbs, UAP, UAV, UASs, UFOs, drones could return to quickly and basically disappear. Well, I think this has all led to something quite unprecedented happening. The story broke June 13th, 2026 on Avi Loeb's website, a UAP Science Advisory Council to the U.S. government. Avi Loeb told the world that there has been the establishment of a new UAP Science Advisory Council by the White House, AARO, ODNI, FBI, and all intelligence community members. And Avi Loeb himself is the head of this UAP Science Advisory Council. The council will report to a higher-level UAP governance board that aims to provide guidance, recommendations, and coordination at the interagency level, bringing together military, law enforcement, intelligence community, and other civilian agencies. The mission of the UAP Governing Board is to serve as an interagency body. Remember how I'm talking about the involvement of the FBI? That can use each member's capabilities and unique authorities to cohesively address national security threats posed by UAP. Let me read this again. An interagency body to cohesively address national security threats posed by UAP. This is not speculation. Is our government and our military trying to discover extraterrestrial life? Are they trying to discover new physics, new science, free energy? The short answer here is no. This is not what the government and the military are trying to do at this point. The fact of the matter is, our airspace is being invaded by something. I want to be real cautious here about fear-mongering, because that is certainly not what I'm trying to do. And this is why I am just sticking to the facts of this matter. But again, the fact is, something is invading our airspace. Something is invading the airspace of our most sensitive military and nuclear sites. We don't know what it is. It exceeds the capabilities of our technology. We don't know where they're coming from, and we don't know where they're going back to. That we may have ideas. And again, they're not trying to keep this a big secret. Avi Loeb's UAP Advisory Council has been formed to literally help the government, the military, ODNI, the intelligence community, the FBI. They're trying to help them figure out what is in our airspace. And this has become such a serious matter that it seems like they've all but admitted, hey, we can't figure it out on our own and we need help. I believe the UAP Advisory Council has been tasked with a very serious objective. Whereas scientists at Bletchley Park during World War II were tasked with cracking the German enigma, I believe that Avi Loeb and his scientists have been tasked with a similarly serious job of cracking the UAP enigma. Avi Loeb's Advisory Council has put out a public survey on UAP. And you can't make this up, but one of the council members created this artwork for the survey. It is a representation of that Western U.S. encounter that has now been referenced in all 3 releases of the UFO files. We see some sort of orbs exiting a huge cave, and they're having an encounter with a military helicopter. Again, I want you to have a close look at this. This is the official cover art for the UAP Advisory Council's public survey. It is a representation of an encounter in the UFO files that occurred over a Western United States sensitive site. Officials went to investigate previous orb encounters at the site. Not only did they spot a large cave entrance, but they had their own orb encounters. It's clear to me that they believe a subterranean area could be responsible for housing whatever is happening, whatever is causing these airspace incursions. Subterranean areas could be responsible for being the base of operations for whatever Avi Loeb and the UAP Advisory Council has been tasked with solving. I want to circle back to that in just a minute. These subterranean areas and something I've discovered, something I'm going to have to talk very particularly about. But first, remember Jeff Andrews saying that the New Jersey drones were Iranian? Remember when Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp were releasing videos of, quote, jellyfish UFOs? Headline, June 23rd, 2026, New York Post. U.S. fighter pilot shot down by Iran describes alarming jellyfish drones before crash. Real alien A U.S. pilot who was rescued after his plane was shot down in Iran chillingly recalled being swarmed by Iranian drones that moved together in unison in a jellyfish-like formation. The pilot said multiple drones interconnected and moving as one, with smaller drones below the bigger drones like legs. Real alien the source added. The F-15 pilot shared the alarming encounter in a debriefing with intelligence officials after the April incident, which could indicate that Iran has significantly increased its military drone capabilities, according to CNN. How the fighter jet was down remains under investigation, but the formation of the drones, which one source told CNN the pilot described as a minefield of drones hovering in the air, may have helped Iran take the F-15 down. The pilot and a weapons systems officer both ejected from the jet on Good Friday, the first time in the conflict a U.S. plane was shot down in Iranian skies. The pilot was quickly rescued hours later on April 3rd, but the weapons officer, who was seriously injured, had been forced into hiding in the Zagros Mountains for more than a day after Iran placed a bounty on his head. So Jeff Andrew, December 2024, shocking accusations on Fox News about Iranian drones. And here just yesterday, shocking breaking news about Iranian drones. All right, finally, I want to circle back to this cave story. Again, I believe that they were searching for something like a cave or a cavern, which is why this caught their notice, why they stopped and investigated. The report said it was too treacherous to land the helicopter, but they did linger in the air and investigate for quite a while. So I believe they think it's either possible that these things are leaving from a subterranean area and going back to them, which honestly makes a lot of sense, or I think that they have previous intelligence that says that that could be happening. And it made me wonder, what sort of subterranean areas have we got out here that we know about that could perhaps be utilized by an adversary for nefarious purposes? So I'd been researching abandoned subterranean areas near sensitive sites in the Western United States, trying to figure out, hey, where are some places based on my theories of where the orb encounter happened at in UFO files? I mean, some of my speculation was Plant 42 or the Nevada test site. And I did discover abandoned subterranean areas near some of our sensitive sites. And this one in particular, this is a screenshot from someone who explored this particular subterranean area. And they made a video of this 7 years ago, so in 2019. And this subterranean area is big enough to walk into and stand up in and hike all the way to the back. And it goes way back there. I got in touch with the person who explored this subterranean area, and they made the comment to me that I probably know that this area has since been closed down, like access to it, the road that went back there, has been closed to the public. Well, I didn't know that because I don't live in the Western United States, but I decided to go take a look at this road on Google Earth. And keep in mind, this person was exploring this subterranean area near a sensitive site in 2019. And honestly, when Google Earth pulled up the image of the road, I was kind of shocked. It's from April of 2024, and there's the entrance to the short road leading back to the subterranean area. This road used to be accessible to the public, but by April of 2024, months before many of these airspace incursions over our sensitive sites, months before the New Jersey drone incursions, before many of these incidents in the UFO files, before the Barksdale incursions, this road not only was closed to the public, it was placed under live, active security. A guard station was raised. And here in the photograph on Google Earth, we see a security truck. And there are accounts from people in this area that say, yeah, there's a person monitoring this location, at least one person, and they have a shack there and they have a vehicle. Now the shack has a lot of different warning signs on it, but you can't quite make out what they say. So in April 2024, this road, which accesses a pretty remote subterranean area that is not far from one of our sensitive military facilities, this road was shut down and placed under guard. I have since discussed these incidents in my investigation of the subterranean area with a friend of mine. I play volleyball with them. I had no idea they were involved in this arena. And they said, yeah, you're kind of on a very interesting path there. And that's all they would really say. So I even got a friend of mine, friend of the show, who's been on with us before, Bama George. He is a realtor in his real life. And I said, hey, Bama George, can you pull deeds, property records for plots in other states said, yeah, I can. Thought it'd be no problem. I gave him several plots, including adjacent plots to this one, to help me with. You can't make this up. He immediately was able to pull up all the information about all the adjacent plots to this one. But this one, and this is just crazy, but it's the truth. He couldn't get anything about it. He couldn't pull the information. So I actually had to do some really deep digging, really deep, to get to the bottom of who owns this property. And that's why I'm being very particular about what I'm saying about it, because this property is owned by a U.S. company. I have attempted to reach out to this company as to why the road has been closed down. Why is it under a guard shack now with security? And is it being leased to anyone else at the moment? And so far, they have not reached back out. So have I discovered a potential subterranean area that could be the base of operations for orbs that are invading our sensitive sites? I don't know. But the White House, Arrow, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, the entire intelligence community, the UAP Governance Board, and the UAP Alliance, and Avi Loeb's UAP Advisory Council, they are taking the possibility of an orb invasion from these subterranean areas very seriously. Okay, Unexplained Ones, let's get into this giveaway stuff before we let you go. We've got lots of signed books to give away by authors like New York Times bestselling author Patricia Cornwell, Disney author David Koning, Bev Vincent, who writes in the Stephen King multiverse, friend of the show Lee Starks, Colonel Drew Miller, and much more. Just be a sub, leave a comment, and of course, if you like the video, smash the like button for me. That would really help us out. All right, Unexplained Ones, this is Dr. Mouse. Stay alert, keep your heads on a swivel, and in the meantime, spend some time off your screens this week. Head outside, spend some time in the woods, look up at the skies. You may not have a Sasquatch encounter, you may not have a UFO experience, but you might just find something even more important out there. And that's yourself. Thanks, everybody.
All things unexplained.
So some of that I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.